Hello there and welcome again to Mrs. E English Skills. Today we're carrying on with our creative writing 6-week course and we're up to week 4, Introduction to Poetry, and we're going to be taking a close look at Ballad. So let me give you a brief introduction to poetry. Poetry can be intimidating for some, as it is often thought of as cryptic and beyond understanding. However, it is there to be enjoyed and can be interpreted in many different ways. When writing poetry, there are some basics we need to know to help us grasp poetry and enable us to find our own poetic voice. So let's start by building up our writing toolkit. Let's familiarise ourselves with essential poetry terminology, from similes and metaphors to alliteration and personification. Understanding these literary devices is crucial for effective poetry writing and will enhance your writing toolkit. You'll notice we came across quite a few of these earlier on in this course when we were looking at descriptive writing. So you can look back on those videos to refresh your memory regarding similes, metaphors, alliteration, personification. So let's look at specific terms associated with poetry. Let's start with allusion. Before I start telling you what each of these terms mean, maybe you could pause the video and see if you can write down some ideas on what you think they mean. If you want to do this, you can pause the video now. If not, just carry on and I will reveal what each term means. So, allusion. Allusion is reference to something else outside the subject of the poem. For example, an open window could allude to a longing for freedom. Diction. This is the poet's precise choice of words. Imagery. This is descriptive sensory words that create a mental image, such as a simile or a metaphor. Pentameter. This is the rhythm the words of poetry create because of stressed syllables. For example, iambic. So when a poem is being read, it will often have some sort of rhythm, such as rhyme. A rhyme is the same syllable of weird sounds, often occurring at the end of lines of poetry. We will discuss rhyme by using the alphabet, such as A, B, or A, B, C, B. That will make sense later on in this video. Rhythm. This is the repetition of stressed and unstressed syllables which create a certain sound and pace. Symbolism is using one object to suggest another meaning. For example, again, a window might symbolise freedom or opportunity. Theme. This is the dominant unifying idea in a poem. Couplet. This is a pair of consecutive lines that typically rhyme, so they will end in the same rhyme sound. A tarset is a 3-line stanza or poem, for example a haiku, and a quatrain is a 4-line stanza or poem. Stanza means a paragraph of a poem. That's how I remember it. Which is the first piece of terminology on this slide. So a stanza, as I've said, is lines of poetry that are grouped as a unit, separated from other lines with a space, the paragraphs of poetry. Ballad. A ballad is a narrative poem that frequently deals with folklore or popular legends. So it's a story in a song. A sonnet, for example, a Shakespearean sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem that often focuses on love or a deep emotion. Villanelle. No, it's not just a well-known character in a TV programme. A villanelle is a poem. It's a 19-line poem consisting of 5 tarsets followed by a quatrain. And finally, refrain, which is just a phrase or line that's repeated at intervals within the poem. So let's get started with writing our own poetry, starting with the first poem in the series, a ballad. The ballad is probably one of the easiest forms to write. It looks like a simple song with verses and sometimes a refrain or chorus. It is very easy to set a ballad to music and sing it. You may have heard of power ballads, the Mariah Careys, Whitney Houstons. Well, that's essentially what we're going to write today. The ballad form lends itself well to nearly any topic, but traditionally it was used for poems that told a story, usually of folklore or legends. You can, however, write about whatever you wish. If anyone has ever watched The Witcher, you will probably know the well-known character who goes around the pubs singing songs and stories about the Witcher. Well, they are ballads. So let's talk structure. How do we structure a ballad? When do we need to stress our syllables? What sort of rhyme scheme do we use? Stanzas, remember that's the paragraphs of a poem, are typically 4-line. So remember, these are called quatrains. And they have a rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B or A, B, C, B. This is what it looks like. You can see from this stanza, I have coloured in various rhyme schemes. So we've got, I went to meet a man in town who walked along the bay. Once facing him I had to frown, with not a lot to say. Often the first and third line of each stanza is iambic tetrameter, while the second and fourth, last line of each stanza, is iambic trimeter. You can see the blue is iambic tetrameter, and that's where we've got 4 stressed syllables. I went to meet a man in town. Whereas in the second line, we've got iambic trimeter, which means there are 3 stressed syllables. Who walked along the bay. And you can see the rhyme scheme there. Town and frown are our A rhyme, and bay and say are our B rhyme. So this is just a typical ballad. As long as it follows a similar song-like format, you can vary the rhyme or the beat. Let's have a look at another example. In Scarlet Town, where I was born, there was a fair maid dwelling, made every youth cry well away, her name was Barbara Allen. We've still got the same stressed syllables. In line 1 and 3 we've got 4 stressed syllables, and in lines 2 and 4 we've got 3 stressed syllables. But we've swapped the rhyme scheme a little. This follows AB, CB rather than AB, AB. So as you can see, the first and third lines don't have to rhyme, and this is why it's such an easy form. You can, of course, rhyme the first and third line if you wish to, however. As for a refrain or chorus, this is completely optional. If you choose to have a repeated stanza, this just follows the same form. It's just another stanza that repeats after each. So let's look at one I made earlier. This is just something I put together using the format that we have just discussed. There was a man from Engelbert who ate an orange berry. His stomach soon began to hurt. I think his name was Terry. He sprinted off to find the loo amongst the crowds in market. At last the men's came into view before he hit the carpet. The moral of the story be, before you start a chewing, be mindful of the berry tree. It might be your undoing. So why don't you have a go? Let's think about starting to write our own poetry. In order to start off your idea process, let's complete another free writing exercise. Do you remember when we started our prose unit in week 1? Instead of looking at images, however, I'm just going to put one video on the screen, or you could just listen to the music with your eyes closed, and then I'm going to say start writing. When I say start writing, that's what I would like you to do. Start writing any words, any phrases, anything that comes to mind. Do not think about it, just write. And you should end the exercise with a page full of words in order to get you started. So either close your eyes or just watch the bubbles on the page. Make sure you've got a pen in hand and a piece of paper, whether that's A4, A5 or a notepad, it doesn't matter. So we will begin now. Remember, wait for me to say start writing. Start writing. And stop writing. Hopefully you've got a page full of words to start working. However, if you feel like you've not got enough as of yet, just restart this exercise and then write some more words down on the page. You are now ready to start writing your ballad. Why don't you use one of my templates to get you started on your first stanza? Either using the ABAB rhyme scheme or ABCB. Why don't you jot one of these tables down in your notebook and then remember the first and third line of each stanza is iambic tetrameter, which is 4 stressed syllables, while the second and fourth line of each stanza is iambic trimeter, which is 3 stressed syllables. You could underline the stressed syllables in each line just to make sure you've got that right. If you're struggling, just start the video again and have another look at the examples that I gave and the structure page in particular. Thank you so much for watching. Next session we'll be exploring sonnets, so I hope to see you then. As ever, I'm Mrs. E, and I will hopefully see you very soon.